Good evening, everyone, or good morning, or good afternoon, or as we say sometimes, good now. Welcome to Quantum Alignment System webinar. I'm still sometimes say teleclass, which is hysterical. We are going to be talking tonight about human design, your body, vitality, or the opposite of vitality, burnout, pain, and how to use your chart as a way of exploring what might be some of the underlying emotional, spiritual, and even ancestral reasons why your body is creating pain. I want to start this evening with saying we are not doctors. We are not talking about anything that's going to heal you. We are looking at the correlations and the relationships and the lessons that sometimes pain bring us. So I really want to invite you into an exploration of your chart as a healing journey, as a journey to help you explore some of the underneath of what might be underneath behind why you might be experiencing pain, not just in your body, but in any area of your life. As you'll learn tonight, pain is just a symptom that oftentimes is giving us a signal to let us know when we're off course. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what might be knocking you off course and how can you get yourself more aligned. This class is absolutely open to newcomers, Justin. This is a place for you to, whether you're new to human design or you're a human design coach or you're a healer or you're just trying to figure out what is this weird thing that the computer spit out, you're in the right place because we're going to give you some places to start exploring. So I'm going to start by opening up our slides. If you don't know me, my name is Karen Curry Parker. I am a multiple best-selling author. I'm the creator of the Quantum Human Design and the Quantum Alignment System. I've been an emotional freedom techniques, which is a meridian-based acupressure technique. It's energy psychology. I've been an emotional freedom techniques practitioner since 2000. I was one of the very first people trained to use EFT. I was also one of the very first trained life coaches in the world. I actually studied with Thomas Leonard, considered to be the father of life coaching, actually before I even knew human design. I'm a Quantum University perpetual student, apparently, as well as a guest lecturer. I have a TEDx talk that I've done on burnout. I have a podcast called Quantum Conversations, which I'm really, really proud of. That's kind of my sweet project. Most importantly, what I really want to bring to you is, and why I'm telling you all this, is that my background is in therapeutic coaching and healing people. I like to help people break free from patterns and old stories that keep them stuck and keep them from fulfilling the full potential of who they are. And in my journey with human design, and I've been studying and learning human design, I studied with the founder of human design since 1999. In my journey with human design, I have been obsessed for the last 23 years with the question, how do we use human design as a tool to help people actualize the full potential of who they are? And so tonight, my intention and my hope and my prayer is that the information that we cover will give you some key insights to help you explore how you can release patterns, habits, things that are holding you back from fulfilling the true story of who you really are. And in case you forgot, you're a once in a lifetime cosmic event and you have a unique and vital and irreplaceable role to play in the cosmic plan. And my hope is that tonight we give you at least some ideas on what you could do to take the next right step to continue to move you towards the fulfillment of that unique place that only you can occupy. All right, so we're going to start tonight with just some basics. We're going to talk about how we manifest well-being and vitality. And we're going to talk a little bit about the parts of the creative equation, what actually goes into the process of manifesting well-being and vitality, the opposite of pain, right? So I'm going to break down for you the components of the creative equation. So I'm going to tell you all the parts that we work with when we create or when we manifest, which is another word that we use sometimes. So the first part of the equation, or the first component of the creative process, is what we call the quantum field, which is basically the unmanifest reality. So at this very moment, as you're sitting in your chair or driving in your car or wherever you might be, you are swimming literally in a field of moving possibilities and moving potentials. They're not physical, they're not tangible, they're not manifest. There's just all kinds of potentials swimming and zipping and zapping around you. And your creative capacity to manifest well being and vitality is really just you plucking one of those potentials out of this quantum field and bringing it into form. So let's talk about how do you do that. The second component of the creative equation is called, or I like to call them, the mental, the emotional body. There are lots of different names for this. The mental, the emotional body is basically a filter. It's where you hold all of your memories, your ancestral lineage, where you hold your programming, where you've been imprinted, all the things your mom said to you, your dad said to you, your teacher said to you, all your experiences in life are stored in these energy fields, this part of your energy field, and it basically acts as a filter. It filters out to a certain degree which one of those potentials you're going to make manifest out of that quantum field of infinite possibilities. We say this is where you carry your conditioning. And tonight we're going to talk a lot about conditioning and deconditioning, which are two terms that we use a lot in human design. The third thing we're going to talk about, or the third part of the creative components of the creative equation, the third part is called the subtle body. The subtle body is basically the energy template or your vibrational field that holds in place, it's a template, it holds in place either what you are about to create or what you're about to manifest, or what you're in the process of discreating or unmanifesting. So if you had a cold and you were maybe hanging out with somebody who was a medical intuitive and they would scan your energy field, they might see through intuitively scanning your energy field that, oh, over here, there's a blip on your energy field. That's where your cold is, right? And that cold is on its way being unmanifested or discreated out of your energy field. If you went to go see a really good psychic, they might look at your energy field and say, oh, honey, you're about to meet your soulmate, because that energy of the soulmate would be vibrating in your energy field about to manifest your physical experience of your soulmate. The energy template or your energy field is where, if you've ever had homeopathy or used flower essences, if you've ever gone to an energy healer or somebody who uses any kind of hands-on healing or auric healing, that level of healing happens on the subtle body level. It's your aura, if you want to call it that. The third component in the creative process is your manifested reality. This is part of an important feedback loop. Your manifested reality is giving you information so that you can experience it and decide, consciously or unconsciously, what do I want to create next? Do I like this? Yeah, let me have some more. Do I not like this? I don't want to do this again. So that physical reality, the manifest reality, is an important part of your feedback loop that really helps you make decisions about what you're going to consciously or unconsciously create. If we want to look at this in a different way, just trying to keep it simple, you might think of it this way. There's a quantum field of infinite possibilities. Down at the bottom, we have your life right now. In the middle, there's a filter. And that filter is really where your story is held, the story of all the things that happened to you, the story of who you think you are. And that story acts as a filter. It notices and it sees and it draws through it the things that match your story. So you are the story that you tell about yourself. Now, here's the cool part about the story that makes it an important understanding for you creating a different quality of well-being and vitality in your life. Quantum physicists, when they first started looking at quantum particles, the building blocks of matter, when they first started looking at quantum particles, what they noticed was that they could either measure the movement of a particle, and right now, remember, you're sitting in this field of just constantly moving potentials, right? Or they could measure the location. So to measure the location, they had to have an expectation about where a quantum particle would appear, and that expectation basically made that quantum particle stop moving and drop, and quantum physicists call this collapse, into material form. So the quantum particle would stop moving the minute you noticed it based on where you expected it to be, and it would show up in manifested form. So you can either measure the movement or the location of quantum particles, but never both at the same time. The movement of a quantum particle is pure potential, it's not manifest. Location, the minute we have an expectation about where that particle is going to be, we create manifestation. Meanings or expectations based on the meanings we have is what determines which potentials we make manifest. The meanings you hold are determined by your conditioning field, meaning they are determined by what you're holding in your mental and emotional body. So all those memories, all those stories, all those things you think you are, all those things your people said to you growing up, all those places where you internalized messages about yourself, those experiences created meanings that are part of your story and in your filter. And if you want to create a different state of well-being in your life, you have to change the meanings that you have. So what does that mean? What that really means is that our conditioning, our life experiences, and our ancestral lineage, we know this more and more as more and more research comes out about epigenetics, our conditioning determines what we create and what we experience in our lives. So we're going to do a fun exercise for a minute. What does vitality mean to you? So I'm going to actually just pause here for a second. So take a minute, look at this slide, look at this lovely couple jogging to the park. I want you to think of the word vitality. And I want you just to make a bulleted list. You don't even have to use the bullets, just make a list of everything that comes to mind when you think of the word vitality. So everything that comes to mind when you think of the word vitality. And what I want you to do is, as you think of that, you can either write it in your notes. And when you feel like, okay, I'm complete, go ahead and post anything that came up for you around the word vitality in the chat. So I will give you guys like 20 seconds just to make a bullet. Actually, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you a little bit of time. Just make a list. Everything that you think of when you think of vitality. Okay. Okay. Some of you are already sharing. Thank you. Okay. We've got a good theme going in here. Alive, energy, feeling alive, my true essence, health, well-being, energy, vibrant, energetic, bright frequency, curiosity, joyous, playful, happy, light energy, power, pure joy, vibrance, unlimited options, enthusiasms, enjoyment. Only this came to mind, feeling well rested. That's a good one. It's a really good one. So here's the next thing I'd like for you to consider. If you were going to rank yourself on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being low, 10 being high, how much vitality are you embodying in your body right now? And if you're not, again, just stream of consciousness. Why do you think you're not? What might be holding you back from experiencing vitality? Okay, good. By the way, there's no right or wrong answer here. None of what we do tonight, none of the exercises we do, none of this is about judging yourself, feeling bad, feeling ashamed, not wanting to share. All we're doing tonight is bringing awareness to where are you right now, because that awareness gives us a good starting point. So there's no wrong or right. Don't judge any of it. And let's just keep looking at awareness. And part of why I'm having you do this is just because part of what happens to us is we get disconnected from the body. We get so disconnected from the body that we don't read the signals that the body gives us, or we misunderstand the signals that the body gives us. And so much of human design is actually about sort of dropping back into that body and feeling what feels right, what feels good. You'd be surprised how much of my coaching with my clients when we talk about human design is about getting people to give themselves permission to do what feels good. So I want you to get back into that feeling of your body. And we're going to talk a little bit more about if it's not feeling good, what might be going on, right? So thank you all for sharing, and thank you for being willing to share in the chat. And I just want you to know that I'm holding a space for all of you. And my intention, as I said tonight, is to make sure you get some good places to start exploring where perhaps you want to begin the journey of amping up your vitality and your well-being. All right, so let's talk about what just happened here. So when you saw the word vitality and you saw that slide, what happened is your brain started a photon storm, a storm of light. That storm of light caused your body to produce neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters, which is a biochemical, what then in turn caused your emotions to get triggered. So your brain produced neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters created an emotional response in your body. That emotional response is either going to bring you into a state of coherence so that you are attracting into your life things that match that experience, or incoherence, meaning you're going to create a disruption in your natural state of vitality and well-being. Again, let's remember that we're talking about bringing awareness to things, and we're talking about correlations, not causations. So I want to be really clear. There's nothing in the chart that I'm going to look at and I'm going to say, oh, you're going to have this because this is in your chart. It's not a diagnostic tool. And if you have things happening in your life that seem inexplicable or hard, nobody created this. This isn't a blame game. This is about exploring the messages we receive from our body as an opportunity to look at other places where we can bring ourselves into greater alignment with the true story of who we are. So words, archetypes, things with meaning like vitality, which has a lot of different meanings, right? Depending on the meanings you have. Words create photon storms of light in your brain, which causes your brain to create emotions, and your body experiences those emotions, and it entrains your heart into a state of coherence or incoherence, and it influences what you attract. So photons are part of our creative medium. Well, what inspires the movement of the photons in the first place? Those photons are going to be moving based on what's in your story. That unique filter, that story of who you are, influences how your brain responds to archetypes. So I use the archetype vitality, which is actually not a very loaded archetype. Sometimes when I teach this material, I might use a really loaded archetype like soulmate or money. And these can sometimes be very charged words that have a whole huge host of meanings depending on who's receiving it based on their story, whatever's in your filter, the story you tell about who you are. So if you're going to create the reality you want to be experiencing, and in this case, expanded vitality and well-being, the first thing we have to do is we have to start telling a story that matches what you want, right? And if your story creates your reality, or if you create your reality through your story, then you have to ask, who is the you creating that reality? Who are you? What stories and meanings are you creating within your life? And in other words, how have you been conditioned? What caused those stories to form in the first place? What needs to be healed, released, aligned, or brought to your awareness in order for you to start living and telling a different story? So if we look at your human design chart as a blueprint, as a template for the human story, what we see is that the human design chart tells us that we're designed to be abundant, vital, healthy, creative, loved and loving, powerful, connected to source, supported, and compassionate. Your body is oftentimes going to tell you if you're out of sync with any of these things in your life. The physical form, which is a manifested potential, your body's just a physical potential that's been made manifest. How you experience that potential is going to oftentimes be a good barometer to let you know, am I being abundant? Am I being vital? Am I being healthy? Am I being creative? Am I being loved and loving? If your body's showing signs of pain or discomfort or separation from well-being or vitality, it may be that your body is talking to you. And part of what I want to help you do tonight is interpret what message is it giving you. Quantum human design shows us that we're also designed to be vital and sustainable. So the very first thing that I want to do tonight, I want you to, and I'm going to give you a minute to do this. I want you just to take a minute, and I'm going to give you some quiet. Hopefully you're someplace where it is quiet. Take a breath and put your hand over your heart, because sometimes that really helps us kind of really reconnect with the body. And you might even want to put your hand like on your solar plexus. Take a nice long deep breath. And then I just want you to notice where in your body are you maybe experiencing a disruption in well-being. Is there a chronic pain issue? Is there a crick in your neck that doesn't quite go away? In my case, I have really bad plantar fasciitis right now in my right foot that's bothering me. Seems to go through cycles. Did you have a cold recently? Is there something going on in your body? And what I want you to do is just notice on your body, put an X on your worksheet. Just put an X on anything in your body that isn't feeling good right now and maybe hasn't been feeling good for a while. So I'm literally going to give you a minute and I'm going to actually turn my camera off and just let you sit for a minute and be really present to your body. Okay. All right. So I hope you had a chance to just connect there for a little bit. Do come back to that exercise if you need more time to just really sit and think about what's going on with my body. Where is it perhaps not giving you the full potential of what it could be doing? And just think about it. And as I said, as we go through this material, I'm going to bring to you, especially at the end, I'm going to show you how to look at your body and what's going on in your body, to look at the chart and to explore, is there some kind of misalignment between the unique way in which you're configured and what might be the pain in your body telling you? So, all right, let's go back to slides. So, unfortunately for a lot of us, we're kind of taught that there's only really one way to be successful. There's one way to be healthy. Oh my gosh, if you're a postmenopausal woman, the amount of weight loss information that's on the internet and like, this is the one way, right? Eat keto, don't eat keto, eat Mediterranean, don't eat Mediterranean, take collagen. Oh my God, I must be on some kind of algorithm with Instagram. It's amazing to me. I think it's pretty funny. We're taught that there's only one way to be successful. There's only one way to be healthy. There's only one way to make a meaningful contribution in the world. We learn to hide who we really are. We learn to compromise our desires. We give up what's most natural for us. And oftentimes, in our attempt to try to be successful and healthy, we stop doing what's true and right and good for us. It takes a lot of energy to maintain an identity that isn't true to who you are. So every time you say yes when you want to say no, every time you say no when you want to say yes, every time you try to pretend to be something or someone that you're not, every time you make a choice that feels wrong, even though your logical mind is telling you something else, every time you give up your dreams, every time you give up your desires, every time you nurture someone at cost to yourself, every time you actually step away from fulfilling your joy and your authentic self, you actually use an enormous amount of energy. It takes a lot of energy to be someone you're not, more energy than it does to be authentically aligned. When you use your vital life force energy to maintain a facade and you're maintaining inauthentic choices, you will eventually burn out. And you'll probably sabotage everything in your life, oftentimes including your health, because at a certain point, your body's like, I am not doing this with you anymore. I refuse to go to work or to that party or to whatever because I don't want to be there anymore. It's exhausting and it's not right. When we experience pain, pain is oftentimes a symptom that's letting us know that we're experiencing a disconnect from the authentic self. The more pain we have in our life, and of course, tonight we're talking a lot about the body, but this is true for money, this is true for your career, this is true for your relationships, this is true for anything, any kind of place where you're experiencing pain in your life. That pain is a signal. And what it's telling you is it's telling you that you're off course. And it's helping you realize that you probably need some serious course correction. And that course correction is important for you to bring yourself back into alignment with the fulfillment of the true story of who we are. So going back to the filter, that pain is saying, hey, your filter needs cleaning. Whatever you've got in that filter, it needs some cleaning up. So we have to look at, if we're experiencing pain and it's giving us a signal, what's knocking us off track and keeping us from fulfilling that full potential of our vitality? Well, the answer that we have in human design is conditioning. So before I talk about why and how we're conditioned, I want to talk about what is conditioning. Because if you're new to human design, or even if you've been in human design for a while, the conversation of conditioning is pretty simple, but also really important to understand. So traditional human design teaches that to become deconditioned, meaning to bring yourself back into living true to your authentic self without any old artifacts of your previous life, basically happens when you live your type and your strategy, live according to your type and strategy and authority for 7 years. That if you do that for 7 years, you kind of magically shed all these places where you're not living true to yourself, and you emerge from this 7-year process magically deconditioned. There's some truth to that, and I'm not in any way saying that's wrong, but I am saying that since the inception of human design, we now have a lot of science around epigenes, which are the protein codes that regulate DNA expression. Those protein codes can carry up to 14 generations of memories. So we have ancestral memories that oftentimes influence the choices we make and how we experience our personal story. We've had tons of research come out about neuroplasticity, tons of research about the impact of trauma, in particular trauma on the body. So there is a lot of things that go into the process of bringing yourself back into alignment with your authentic self. So the way I like to talk about this, just to keep it kind of simple, is I like to refer back to the work of Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor who went on after the Holocaust to do a lot of beautiful work about purpose and teaching people how to connect with purpose and the meaning of their lives. And he's the author of the book, Man's Search for Meaning. One of the things that Viktor Frankl talks a lot about is that you can't always control stimulus. You can't control necessarily what happens to you. Crazy things happen, terrible things can happen, beautiful things can happen. You don't have a lot of control over those things necessarily. But what you do have control over is how you respond to those things. You have control over how you respond to stimulus. But if in that gap between stimulus and response, or we'll call it reactivity, if in that space between stimulus and response, you're telling a story that isn't embodying the deliberate, intentional response you want to be embodying, you don't have a lot of control over not only the stimulus, but how you react to it. So think about, I'll just say this personally, think about the times if you're married, you say things that you thought you'd never say to your spouse or your partner, but you find your mouth saying things that your mom or your dad said, and now you're like, oh, I can't believe they just said that, right? Or sometimes we do that with our kids too, right? Part of what happens is in that gap between stimulus and response, we still have old parts of old stories that rear their ugly heads sometimes, right? And cause us to do things or react to the world in a way that we don't want to. I love the word react because it basically means you're stuck in a cycle, right? You keep reacting out the response. When you take back control of your story, what's in that filter, and you start looking at how do you rewrite that narrative, that story about who you are, you actually begin to have influence not only over which stimulus you experience, but how you respond to those stimulus, so that you no longer are reacting in response to the world, but you are deliberately creating in the direction in which you intend with your life. Human design and quantum human design is a powerful tool to help you get control of that story. It helps you get control between what's in that space between stimulus and response, so that you have sovereignty and influence over how you react, if you will, or how you deliberately create in response to what shows up in your life. All right, our conditioning oftentimes takes away our ability to influence or control our story. And so for us to get control back, we have to first start by understanding, well, what conditioned us in the first place? So there are 5 kinds of conditioning that I'm going to talk about tonight. Traditional human design only teaches about openness by center. I'm also going to talk a little bit about imprinting, generational energy patterns, genetics, and the design crystals. So in traditional human design, we talk about openness as being places in our energy field where we're receptive to the energy of others. So if you look at your centers, those are the geometric shapes on your chart. Those centers are responsible for processing different kinds of energies. Those centers, when they are white, they are taking in energy, and they're not just taking in energy, they're actually taking in energy and amplifying it. And because you're experiencing energy in an amplified way in that openness, what that does is it causes you oftentimes to mistakenly identify with that energy that you're getting from the world around you or from the people around you, and you think it's you because it's intense and it's big and it's powerful. Part of what we learn in human design is that oftentimes the energy in our openness is not us. It's actually us experiencing other people's energies. And when we can understand the difference between my energy and your energy, it starts to give us control over how the story is played out. When I teach human design, and this is what we cover in quantum human design, I talk about not just the conditioning of the open centers, but I also talk about how defined centers can be conditioned too. They can oftentimes get conditioned because we learn or we are given messages that it's not okay for us to express ourselves how we are. So, for example, if you have this center, this is called the emotional solar plexus defined, and you are by nature a very emotional person, and people have told you to shut it down, stop being so emotional, and you haven't figured out or you never learned how to really work with that energy correctly, you might have learned to shut down your emotional energy and consequently a key element of your decision-making ability. And you may have lost trust in your own inner compass. So both types of centers, defined and open, so the colored in ones and the white ones, can get conditioned. But for all intents and purposes tonight, we're going to talk about openness by center, and know that later on when we talk about the correlation between your chart, your pain, and why perhaps you might be experiencing pain, we're going to be talking about that correlation based on optimal expression, regardless of whether it's defined or open. Okay, so it's going to be both. But we're talking about openness by center as a way of being conditioned. So what happens is when we have openness, we oftentimes identify with other people's energies, and what happens is it creates predictable behavioral patterns, and that becomes our coping strategy for how we deal with the intense experience of other people's energies. So if you have an open or a white head center, that's the triangle at the very top of the chart. This is a pressure center, and this is part of your design. You probably are always under pressure to try to figure things out. And that can sometimes leave you a little bit afraid of the unknown. And sometimes it leaves you trying to make up answers so that you feel okay with not knowing because you haven't figured it out yet. If you have an open ajna, that ajna is designed to be certain. And when it's open, it means that you struggle sometimes with certainty. It's hard to hold on to a fixed idea or even a fixed belief. And so that uncertainty can sometimes be unsettling and again cause us to overconsume data and information in our attempts to combat our fear of the unknown. The throat center, I'm just going to keep this simple. If you are a generator type or an alchemist in quantum human design, a projector or an orchestrator in quantum human design, if you are a reflector or a calibrator in quantum human design, you have a non-motorized or an open throat. So it might be colored in, but it will not be motorized. Only manifestors and manifesting generators have motorized throats. What that means is that if you're a generator, projector, or reflector, or an alchemist, calibrator, or orchestrator, you need recognition and attention to be heard and to really feel seen. And so you may have adopted energy patterns or behaviors that cause you to get attention, sometimes not great attention, because if you learned this as a kid, the kids' bad attention oftentimes is better than no attention at all. So the struggle for the throat center is the struggle for recognition and attention when it's open. And oftentimes if we misuse that throat energy center, it can cause our entire endocrine system to collapse. And I'll talk about that later. The G center, when it's open, causes us to question our lovability. The will center, when it's open, gives us a motivation of trying to prove our value in the world or trying to prove ourselves in the world. The spleen center, when it's open, gives us a tendency to hold on to things, circumstances, mindsets, relationships, belongings for longer than we should. The emotional solar plexus, when it's open, oftentimes makes us emotionally empathic, and it makes us afraid sometimes to deal with truth and consequences. So we never ask for what we need and want in relationships, and we become hyper people pleasers. The sacral center, when it is open, this will be manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. Oftentimes the theme of the open sacral is not knowing when enough is enough. And the root center, when it's open, is under pressure to get things done. And that pressure is the pressure to get things done so you can be free from the pressure of needing to get things done. The irony of it is you're never done. You have an ongoing, ever-evolving to-do list. So technically speaking, if you don't learn how to work with this pressure, you feel like you're never free from the pressure. So in your notes, think about these in the context of your open centers. Go back and think about how these behavioral patterns perhaps influenced how you show up for your life and how you perceive yourself in your story. The second thing that conditions us is imprinting. We know this from child development, that your family of origin imprints you. You're going to take in how your parents behave, including if they're a different type or they have different centers than you. That's going to create certain behavioral patterns that you're going to watch, and those are going to imprint you. You also take in your belief systems from your family. You take in the expectations of your family. You take in how your family dealt with stress, emotions, etc. And of course, you're also imprinted from your own lived experiences. And we can't downplay this or negate this as part of the deconditioning process. Sometimes as part of the deconditioning process, we only have to dive in and explore what happened to us. What happened in our story, in the story of our childhood, and what did we get imprinted with? What did we see? What did we witness? Because it influences us. The third thing that influences us, or the third thing that can condition us, are generational energy patterns. You actually inherit your human design from your grandparents. Your children inherit their human design from your parents. So you can sort of start to see that there are elements in the chart that are key aspects of your intergenerational family dynamic, and it plays out over and over and over again between generations. And so when you start really understanding your chart and how to deal with other people's energies, which I think is actually the biggest gift that human design can bring you, what happens is you start to also disrupt intergenerational family patterns. And that can actually help you be a better parent and a better daughter or son or husband or wife or partner in a relationship. The fourth thing that can affect our conditioning is genetics and epigenetics, whether we like it or not. Some of our experiences in our story or some of our perceptions about who we are in our story come from our ancestral lineage and from our genetics. As I said before, the protein codes that regulate gene expression can carry sometimes up to 14 generations of memory. Our ancestral lineage influences how we experience the world, and we bring that in with us. We bring that in with us from the moment we're here, and oftentimes we have to clear that too in order to decondition our narrative and make it more true to who we really are. Last but not least, there are two components to your human design. There's what's called the design crystal and the personality crystal. So those two crystals are not actual physical crystals. They're crystalline codes of information. The design crystal carries the code for your life story. So it actually has built into it the crystalline code that gives us information about your body, your genetic lineage, and it's not the actual genetic lineage necessarily, it's the themes of your genetic lineage. It's going to give us codes that tell us about your personality. It's going to give us codes that tell us the details of your actual human life story. That is encoded into what we call the unconscious part of the chart. So all the red parts in your chart, all the red numbers in your charts, and all the red lines in your chart are part of your life story, your design crystal. That design crystal is called forth at the moment of your conception. It returns back to the earth when you die. It's kind of like the avatar for your soul. Okay? Your soul purpose, by the way, is encoded in the black parts of your chart. And your human design chart is actually a synthesis, a blend of your soul purpose and your life purpose. When we die, that design crystal, as I said, goes back into the earth and somebody else gets to wear it. So it's kind of like, as I said, it's like a human suit or a code for a human suit. And sometimes that code for that human suit contains memories of past lives or previous experiences, or if you really understand the nature of time, concurrent experiences. And so sometimes part of who we think we are is coming from the old juju, if you will, built into your design crystal that's part of your chart. So the next thing we have to talk about is the challenge of deconditioning, because it would, it's not an easy process necessarily. It would be nice if we could click our heels together 3 times and poof, be deconditioned, but sometimes we have to figure out how do we start and how do we keep that process going. And by the way, I truly do believe, I just want to say this without the slides, I really do believe it's not a process that we ever are done with. We're constantly being reconditioned by the world, by collective consciousness. So we're always having to get in there and adjust the story. If you go flip open CNN every day and read it, you're going to get conditioned by collective stories. And you have to kind of work your way back to, okay, what is my truth? And how do I work with that? And how do I make sure that I'm only taking the parts that I choose into my personal narrative? So, all right. Would be nice, 7 years, poof, you're done. But no, I think it's an ongoing process. All right, so the first problem in trying to figure out how do we decondition, which is a big question that I have been obsessed with for in my entire adult career and certainly during my entire time when I've been working with human design. So the first problem is, how do we create a healthy set of meanings that allow us to choose to create well-being in every area of our life? How do we do that, right? And so I like to use, of course, quantum human design, because quantum human design is really a good way of cataloging the parts of the story that you're telling. It really gives us kind of a Rolodex, right? So this chart basically is comprised of archetypes, parts of a story. And the chart itself, when we start to take it apart and look at it and understand the parts in it, if we start to understand the lines of the profiles and the centers and the type and how this all plays together, we start to be able to really look at the parts of our story so we can start taking it apart and deliberately and consciously working on these parts so that we can pick out and consciously choose the highest expression of our story. So I like to think of your human design as being a key element of that filter, that story that you tell about who you are and how you know yourself to be. Now, human design, if you didn't know this, is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics. Well, what you need to really know, in addition to, of course, the beautiful origins, the esoteric and cultural origins of all these parts of the system, is that all of these systems, with the exception of quantum physics, really have one thing in common, and that's archetypes. Meaning all of these systems use ideas, symbols, patterns, or character types as a way of interpreting the human condition and the human story. So we're each living our personal story comprised of the archetypes in our quantum human design charts. So this is a word collage that I created, and I just typed in a bunch of the names of the gates from human design. And of course, it gives you this huge, you could go make a word collage with all the names of the gates and the archetypes in your chart, right? But this is just all the archetypes in the chart. The synthesis of all of them together make the whole story of who you are, plus your imprinting, plus your conditioning. But basically, you're a collection of parts of a story. The cool thing that's so powerful to understand about archetypes is that archetypes themselves are neutral, right? An archetype is just a word that has a definition. The meaning of the archetype is determined by our own personal experience of that energy. So when we look at archetypes, we're looking at the possibility of that theme in your story being lived either in a low expression, an average expression, or the high expression. So obviously the goal is to live out the highest potential of all of the archetypes in your chart, because when we do that, that's when we're happiest and we're most abundant and most magical. And of course, that's when we're creating in alignment with our authentic self, and of course, bringing out the highest potential of our human design. Why is this important to know? Because one of the biggest places of creative challenge, one of the biggest things that keeps us from creating what we want in our life is, number one, trying to create something you don't really want because you don't know who you are. And so you're doing what you were told that you should be wanting instead of doing what you really want. And the second thing that sometimes keeps us challenged is that we try to create something in a way that's not right for us. This is why type and understanding type, just the basics of type, is so important, because type tells us this is how you make decisions. And really, if you think about it, your life is the sum total of every decision you've ever made. So you have to know who you're designed to be, which archetypes are part of your soul curriculum, in order to know how you create and what you truly want, so that you're making decisions that bring you closer and closer to being in alignment with your authentic self-expression. Back to problem number one, which I labeled as problem number two, but it's really problem number one, is what does it mean to decondition? Well, what that means is that you live out the highest expression of the archetypes in your chart. You want to have an understanding of this. You want to have an understanding of even that. Sometimes people tell me, oh, it's so limiting. It's not limiting. There's an unlimited potential in your chart. And you kind of want some parameters on it, because otherwise you would be swimming around in this quantum field with so many options, you'd probably have a very difficult time making a choice. It's kind of like I always say, if you take a kid to the candy store at the Mall of America, if you don't give them parameters, like you can choose from the jelly beans and the gummy bears, right? If you don't give them some kind of guidelines on that choice, you're going to be stuck in that candy store forever, right? Just drooling, with this kid drooling and glazed over because they're not going to be able to choose. So your chart defines the places, how we choose, and it gives us some good clarity around what might be joyful and aligning and authentic for us. But really what it also does is through that experience of understanding of how to bring out the highest expression of the chart, you tap into an innumerable amount of possibilities. Now, in my exploration over the last 23 years of how do we decondition, how do I get my clients to stop being stuck? How do I get my clients out of self-sabotaging patterns? How do I help people really discover what it is that's keeping them from fulfilling the full potential of all the archetypes in their chart? In that exploration over the last 23 years, I went deep into looking at the ancient and modern roots of the archetypes in human design. I blended those with my understanding of child development. My original training as a nurse is actually in child development. I'm a child development specialist. I'm a parent educator originally long ago. And so I took all of that understanding of human development, human growth and development, human design. What do people need to feel healthy and resilient? And I basically blended it up in a metaphorical blender. Okay. So I blended up all the parts of the chart, and I blended it up with developmental needs and human growth and developmental needs. And what I really discovered after years of exploring, how is this archetype related to this archetype? How is this archetype related to that archetype? What does this archetype need? What does that archetype need? What drives this archetype? What's motivating that archetype? And doing more than 10,000 readings, what I came up with is the understanding that if I look at all of these big parts, these archetypes, and I blend them up, really what it boils down to is that there are 9 core base archetypes that have to be functioning at the highest level in order for us to live out the fullest potential of the chart. So I call these the 9 resiliency keys. These 9 resiliency keys, when you understand them, start to give you choice. When you encounter a stimulus and you start to clear those 9 core archetypes, you start to gain a whole lot more choice around how you're going to respond to what shows up in your life. Those 9 resiliency keys are core aspects that are at the root of healing, maturity, health, and resiliency. They have to function at the highest level if you're going to get out of struggle in your life. And oftentimes we find that they are the root of most pain and trauma. You're going to have an opportunity. I'm going to actually very quickly read to you the 9 resiliency keys. I'm doing it relatively quickly on purpose because I don't want you to get too much in your head. I really want you to come up with a gut level intuitive response. So you'll see in your workbook, there's a scalar assessment for each one of the resiliency keys. I'm going to go through them one by one quickly. I'm going to read the name of the key. I'm going to give you something to contemplate and think about for like less than a minute. I want you to feel in your body what number or where on that scale you would rank yourself for whichever resiliency key I'm reading. I want you to do this without self-judgment. I want you to do this from a place of curiosity and with a desire to become more aware, because what I'm going to show you later is the relationship between these 9 core elements and the parts of your chart and your body, and what your body might be telling you, and what your body might be telling you about which of these resiliency keys is kind of up for you to work with, to learn from, to heal and align so that you can live out the fullest, highest expression of your chart. So deep breath. You ready? First one is lovability. Can you be loved and accepted for who you are? Just give yourself just rank yourself on that scale. Number 2 is empowerment. Do you feel like you have control or at least influence over your life? Number 3 is courage. Does fear keep you from fulfilling your joy? Number 4 is decisiveness. Do you know how to choose what's right for you? The next one is emotional wisdom. Does emotional energy keep you from acting deliberately? Meaning, are you reacting? Do you compromise what you want, keep other people happy? Self-trust is the next one. Do you trust yourself? Do you have a deep connection to your own inner wisdom, and do you let it guide you? Do you trust it? The next one is vitality. This is knowing how or being able to leverage your energy. Are you fully expressing your vitality and your energy? Another way of saying this is, are you burned out? Authenticity is the freedom, the feeling that you are free to be who you really are, your authentic self. You don't have to compromise or settle with who you are. And last but not least, self-worth. Do you know and do you act on that knowledge of how valuable you are? If we rank them or we put them in sort of an order, and this is, I'm sort of tempting fate to do this because humans don't follow formulas very well. But if I was really going to organize these in a way that kind of made sense, what I would certainly say is that at the base of this pyramid of resiliency is lovability and self-worth. And I would certainly say if you gave yourself a score that you don't like for either lovability or self-worth or both, you're normal. Most of us in some way, shape, or form struggle with lovability and self-worth. At the top of the pyramid is vitality, which basically is what most of my clients show up with. If you're burned out, it's probably not because of your job. It's probably not because of all the parts of your life. It could be in part and parcel, but it's probably because in addition to all that, you're also not feeling like you can show up as you really are. And that effort to show up and be perfect and fulfill everybody else's expectations and deny the parts of yourself that are true to you can cause you to burn yourself out because you're spending all your energy trying to maintain a facade of being who you're not. Here's what I did after working with this information for 23 years is I finally came up with a way of putting it all together. And if you feel like you're really struggling with one of these resiliency keys, I want to encourage you to go to quantumalignmentsystem.com, find a quantum alignment system practitioner, and get somebody to work with you to start clearing some of the energy you're holding in these resiliency keys, because that process of clearing is a transformative experience. And I just want to say you deserve to live out the highest potential of your chart. So I want you to know that I do train people to use this synthesized system that I'm about to share with you. And I really do believe that it's some of the most important work that we are doing on the planet right now, because we need to clear our stories. We need to take back control of our stories. We need to take back control of our ability to consciously choose our response to stimulus in our life. We're at a place where we need to engineer and steer the direction of the planet. And for us to do that, we ourselves individually have to not be reactive. We have to be conscious and deliberate. And for us to be able to do that, we have to get out of pain. We have to get out of anything that's keeping us in knowing that we are unique, vital, and irreplaceable parts of the cosmic plan. We have to be able to do it from a place of understanding of our value so that we're not in competition. We're not playing and creating from a place of lack. And we are better able to see not only our own innate value, but the value of others. So let's talk a little bit tonight about what the quantum alignment system is. And I just invite you to explore either dropping into your body or feeling whether any of these programs are something that you yourself might be interested in. After I explain what this is, I'm going to go back through and I'm going to share with you the 9 resiliency keys, what parts of the chart they are associated with, and what parts of the body they're associated with, so that you can go back and look at that chart that you filled out with your body parts, look at your human design chart, and start exploring for yourself in the context of your chart, what might your body be telling you? So the quantum alignment system has some essential parts. The first part is we have an assessment system that's proprietary that we use, where we look at the chart and we explore through very targeted assessment systems based on your design, what's going on with you and what's showing up in your life and in your body. And we create a plan of action for how we're going to tackle whatever might be keeping you from living out the full potential of your chart. We integrate quantum human design with what we call choice point tapping, or EFT, the emotional freedom techniques. Through tapping on key elements in your chart, we work together to reframe and retell your story so that you receive a cognitive reframe on your narrative and you get better control over the story you tell yourself about your body, your money, your relationships, your career, your spiritual life, etc. We then, once we complete this process, we kind of anchor it down on an energetic level using custom blended flower essences. So those flower essences are custom blended to elements in the chart, or if you want to work personally with Jamie will actually sit with you and create a custom flower essence. And then we finish up with a process that we call choice point questioning, which is basically a process that we teach where you learn to seed, if you will, the quantum field through asking targeted specific questions. You seed the quantum field to drop into your physical experience answers to your questions about what you need to heal, release, align, or have brought to your awareness for you to fulfill the full potential of your chart. So this system works in an integrated way across all the layers of the energy field. The subtle body therapy clears the energy body. So that we use flower essences that clears the blueprint or the energy body. EFT and human design clears the mental and the emotional layer. The choice point seed questions tap into potentials in the quantum field. We use journaling, writing, and coaching to continue with cognitive reframes. The results that we get using the system is, on average, we get a 3 to 7 point increase on a scale of 0 to 10 on all the resiliency keys. We see significant decrease in physical and emotional pain. We see a significant increase in your sense of well-being, and we see results that last for 6 months or longer. Here's the last thing I want to share with you. So get out your pens and papers. Remember, again, as we go through this, I want you to look at your body. I want you to look at the relationship between what's going on in your body and what I'm about to share with you. And I want you to know that you are the first people in the world to get this information, except for our professional students. Okay. And I want you to remember you can go back and reference this. So you have the slides, you have this workbook. I want you to remember you can go back if you've got questions like, what is my body trying to tell me? Come back to this information. It will give you some really powerful contemplations to think about as you really interpret the message that your body is sending you. So let's start first with the head center. And again, remember, this isn't about open or defined. This is about, are you optimally using this center based on your unique configuration. The head center is associated with the resiliency keys of decisiveness and self-trust. Physically, it is associated with the pineal gland and the brain. The ajna center is associated with the resiliency keys of decisiveness and self-trust. Also, physically, it is associated with the anterior posterior pituitary gland, the brain, also sometimes the face and the back of the head, the physical head. The throat center is associated with the resiliency keys of authenticity and vitality. Physically, it is associated with the throat, the back of the neck, the thyroid, and the parathyroid. The G center is associated with the resiliency key of lovability, decisiveness, courage, and authenticity. Physically, the G center is associated with the liver and the heart. The will center is associated with the resiliency keys of self-worth, vitality, and empowerment. Physically, the will center is associated with the heart, the stomach, the gallbladder, and very important here, the thymus, which is an essential component of your immune response. So oftentimes when we see autoimmune issues or immune issues, we see a correlation between immunity issues and self-worth and sustainability. The emotional solar plexus is associated with the resiliency keys of courage, emotional wisdom, and empowerment. Physically, the emotional solar plexus is associated with the kidneys, the pancreas, digestion and assimilation, hydration, and absorption. The root center, which is associated with the resiliency key of vitality, is associated with the adrenal glands, skeletal system, the muscular system, and the feet. I don't know why I put that separate, but I did. They're part of the skeletal and the muscular system. The spleen center is associated with the resiliency key of self-trust and courage. Physically, the spleen is associated also with the lymph nodes and the immune system. So letting go, okay? The sacral center is associated with the resiliency keys of decisiveness, vitality, courage, and empowerment. Physically, it is associated with the reproductive organs. So I hope you remember, and I hope you learned tonight, that your chart is kind of a map that helps you understand the energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual root of your pain. And I hope that tonight I've given you at least a little bit of a sneak peek into what might your body be telling you, what messages is any pain or discomfort in your body giving you, and how can you bring yourself back into alignment with the highest expression of your pure potential. It is my intention and my dearest hope that you gain some insight and some information tonight that's going to help you build a better relationship with your body, tap into higher states of wellness and vitality, and help you live out the fullest expression of the true story of who you really are. Thank you all for being here and joining us tonight. Be well, take care, and see you soon.